What's up, guys? If you're watching this is my first ever video that I'm posting. My name is Jazz. Welcome to the channel. Um, I'm still kind of figuring out why I decided to make this channel, but this is going to be your typical talking head video about the things going on in the world right now that everybody seems to be ignoring and pretty much just blind to. Um, My background, as you can see, I'm in a voiceover studio. This is my home studio. I also produce music. Something, nothing serious. It's more of a hobby. But voiceover is my line of work, and I've been doing that for about 12 years. And yeah, I decided to make this channel because I watch YouTube, and I've seen a lot of like talking head videos about the current state of everything from geopolitics to the dating scene, um, to even, certain religious beliefs, conspiracy theories, things of that nature. I can't say that I'm trying to be a channel like that where I just talk about those things, but it all connects for me in a way that helps me confirm my truth. And me personally, I am a believer in Christ. I'm a follower of Christ. And this is not even a Christian channel. I'm not out here to preach the gospel. I mean, I am, but I'm not. This is not what this channel is about. Of course, I would love for anybody to, you know, set their heart for God and to, you know, put their sins away and essentially create a new life in Christ. Of course, I would love that. But that's not the mission of this channel. The mission of this channel is to strictly talk about the things in the world, the things I think about on a daily basis that I kind of just keep to myself. So in a way, this is me just kind of using this as therapy in a way. Not really, but to get these thoughts out of my head. And I've been thinking about doing this channel and just talking about things for the past, man, months. But anyways, that's the introduction. Let's talk about the current dating crisis for men and women. As you know, dating in the past, I say 5 to 10 years, has taken a huge turn, like for the worse, on the women's side and on the men's side. Now, there's this thing that is being said about men as far as there's a male uh, loneliness epidemic. And although that is partially true, I don't think that's the whole truth. I think there's a loneliness epidemic in general. And I think the reason why it's so focused on the males is because, if I can be completely honest, and this is not being a misogynist or a misandrist, it's just looking at the objective truth of the matter. And it's because I think society has grown to hate men. All men. It's almost like the equivalent of cops. You got people who hate cops just because. All cops. The saying, all cops are bastards. ACAB. And we all know, or at least if you're mature enough to understand, that's not true. I have friends who are cops. I respect them. Got a lot of love for them. And objectively speaking, not being biased towards them, being a cop and my friend, I just look at their character. Now, what they do at work is what they do at work. But it's hard for me to believe that all cops are bad. Are there some bad seeds? Absolutely. Just like in any organization, any society, any kind of group of people, there are going to be some bad seeds. When it comes to men in the dating scene, are there some bad seeds? Absolutely. But on the same token, on the other side of the token, let's not forget about the women. We can't sit here and assume that every woman is a queen, that they can't do no wrong, that they've never screwed anybody over, literally and figuratively speaking. They are human just like everybody else. And there are some bad seeds in that too. So with that said, going back to the dating crisis, it's almost like we have a convergence of different crises going on. I'm not going to go into huge detail about that. I'll probably do that in another video. But as far as the dating crisis goes, we've been doing, instead of trying to really fix the problem, we're using prideful coping mechanisms to kind of avoid the situation and just kind of like pretend it's not even there for some reason. It's such a weird situation. And we don't just do that with the dating crisis. We do that with like the current gas prices that are going to like on average close to $5 from a national average standpoint. With AI, we're doing that. Like there's like, there's people that are grunting about the gas prices and grunting about AI and grunting about the dating crisis, but there's no real effort being put in besides the fact of like complaining about it. And I think the reason why is that in Western culture and just like American mindset, we have this idea that things will just resolve itself. And rightfully so, I can understand that. I mean, my whole life, like, I'm 37. My whole life, I've seen situations. I mean, we've all experienced it, like whether it's war related. I grew up through 9/11, even the Gulf of War. I mean, I was a kid at that time, but, COVID is another example. Like things happen and rightfully so, we have this expectation that it will resolve itself and things will get better. But it's been pretty clear that since COVID, things have not gotten better. In fact, me personally, I think in the past decade, and maybe even beyond that, things have not gotten better. They've gotten worse, and they've gotten worse so slowly that us as a society have normalized it. And it kind of reminds me of that old tale about the frog in the boiling water. Not necessarily the frog in the boiling water, but it's like a comparison. I forgot how it goes, but I think, to describe it, if you were to put a frog in boiling water, its natural inclination is to jump out because it's too hot. Now, if you put that same frog in room temperature or even cold water, it'll sit there. But as you crank up that heat over time, it won't even know that it's getting hot. And by that time, it's already dead. It's already cooked. And that's kind of the situation we're going through with a lot of different things. And I don't think it's on accident. I think it's on purpose, especially the things going on geopolitically. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, with this dating crisis, it's for some reason, somehow, in the past 5 years, and I swear, the way things are right now when it comes to like hating men, it seems like women have always hated men. The way that this whole situation has become. But that's not necessarily true. Like, I recall a time, I say about 10 years ago, that there wasn't that mindset going around. I'm sure there were some women that, thought about it, but it wasn't being said out loud. In fact, I feel like 10 years ago, if there were women saying that out loud, it would probably get a few eyebrows. Like, wow, she's acting crazy, Why would she say that? So there's definitely a beginning time frame of when this whole I hate men situation began. And I can tell you one thing. It's not making society any better. And I'm not putting this on the women, but I'm only just mentioning it because it's the primary driver in everything culturally right now. Like you don't see a lot of men online talking about, hating women and all this and the other. But I will tell you this, what I do see is I see a lot of men who are suffering, who are not just with a dating crisis, but with life. And I think on the same token, the women are struggling the same outside of the dating market. I think with careers, with the job market being as terrible as it is right now, people losing their jobs, trying to make ends meet, family, drama, things of that nature. I mean, it's all accumulating. And that goes back to what I said about there's a convergence of different crises going on at the same time. And I study a little bit of history. And this is not necessarily how do I put it? This isn't random. And I'm not saying this is on purpose, but this follows a pattern that is familiar with the fall of an empire. Now, given the dating crisis and the marriage crisis, that's rather new and unique and rare anomaly of a crisis. Even in falling empires, there was still unity with family. There was still that hope of a small community getting together. But we are in a time now where even making friends, given if you're in your 30s and up, are very hard to make, like in a random occurrence. Like you either make friends through other mutual friends, maybe at some events, but it's rare to just go out and really meet people and make friends. In your 20s, maybe a little bit easier because obviously when you're in your 20s, especially early 20s, you're in college, you're going to parties, you're meeting people, you're meeting a lot more people. But yeah, going back to the convergences of a lot of different crises, you mainly see these many crises happening at once when there is a falling of an empire. And as far as America goes, it's definitely on its hind legs. And it's on its hind legs when society itself, which is the building block of an empire, no matter, you could, with money and all that stuff and the military, that's the result of a strong society. It's not the cause of a strong society. It's what maintains the society. But ultimately, a great society is built within each other. And if you have men and women going at it with each other and nobody wanting to really have kids, then you are finding yourself in a situation where you are having a declining society. And, nevertheless, let's not talk about the political aspect as far as like being a conservative or Republican, Democrat, whatever it may be. Like that's another whole situation in itself. But ultimately, when you have a broken society, you're going to go extremely downhill when it comes to a falling empire. And America is at its 250th year, which is about the average length of how long a modern empire lasts. And if you want to look it up, Ray Dalio, who was a billionaire, he created this phenomenal video pretty much explaining the history and the pretty much the logistics of how a modern empire begins and ultimately ends. And I mean, aside from what I'm saying, like when you look at America, and you may be liberal, you may be conservative, you may be Republican. When you look at America, culturally, socially, do you think we're on a progressive, and I'm not talking about liberal progressive, I'm just talking about progressive in a thriving sense? Do you think we're thriving or declining? What does your heart say? Look at all the factors. Look at your bank account. Look at the rising gas prices. Look at our society. What do you think? So let me ask you this. If we are in a declining society, there has to be a bottom. It's not just a deep fall. There has to be a point where all the little different convergences hits a boiling point, to the point where who knows what happens at that point. So anyways, I know I'm kind of going on a rant, but getting back to the dating crisis, as far as like the male loneliness epidemic, I think there's just a loneliness epidemic in general. And you're probably wondering, okay, you're saying all these things, then what's the solution? And the truth is, it's too late. And that's just me being objectively honest. Even if we started today, right now, to fix the issue, it would actually take about a decade. Because you think about it, think about how we got here. It wasn't overnight. It was over years. And we're talking about essentially a movement. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not like a I hate man, I hate this and that kind of movement, but it's a mindset. It's something that's repeated over and over and essentially indoctrinated into our minds to believe. And again, I'm not just talking about misogynist and misandry. I'm talking about just the idea of things, whether that's hating liberals, hating Republicans, just the idea of like hating each other. Those things happen over a long period of time. So, like I said, if today we tried to fix the problem, it would take a decade. Now, with that said, if you're watching this, there's something you can do for yourself, and that's awareness. That's understanding where we are right now. Because the problem I think people have is that they understand that there is this loneliness epidemic, but they don't know what to make of it. So there's a bit of confusion, a bit of not knowing what to do. And I think that's the kind of thing I want to, I guess, let you know, is that this is part of a bigger picture. The dating crisis is a small little, I guess you could call it a small little symptom of the bigger picture. And the thing that you could do for yourself is to understand that we are living in a time where there's no longer peace. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about peace within the world, peace within ourselves, peace as far as making a living, peace with the opposite sex. Peace in general is no more. And unfortunately, this is a time that is even unfamiliar to our parents and our parents' parents. So they don't necessarily understand what's going on. And the problem that I have with older folks is that they see the world from how they lived. And truthfully speaking, I get it. They did live in a way that's harder than us, but they're very unfamiliar to what's going on right now. See, they didn't have a dating crisis, so they don't know how to navigate through that. In fact, they probably don't even know that there's a dating crisis. If you think about it, why would they need to know? They're already married. They're living their best lives in their old age. They don't know what's going on in these streets, man. It's invisible to them. So if you ever have like a parent, a grandparent, or just anybody older who tells you like, oh, you know, back in my day, we had to walk through snow to get to school type of energy, just know that they are living from a different time frame. Okay. In fact, they were living through a time as they were getting older, things were getting better. We are living in a time where things are getting worse as we get older. So you see that there is a big difference. Sorry, that was my dog. What you doing, girl? Her name is Selah. Hey, no. But yeah, I mean, going back to what you can do is you got to be aware of what's going on right now. And there is hope. And I think it's an important time right now to really develop who you are as a person. Do you, whether you're a woman or a man, want to carry that bitterness inside of you? To hate the opposite sex, to despise them, to hate the state of the world, just to carry that bitterness every day. Like, nobody wants to carry that. And I know it's easier said than done, but that's where the awareness aspect comes in. And not just being aware, but finding who you truly are as a person. Because you're not going to find it out at the bar. You're not going to find it at the club. You got to find it within yourself. So you got to tap into things that make you feel whole. Whether that's a book you always wanted to write, music that you wanted to make, maybe you're a filmmaker. You can make some films. I mean, the whole point is tapping into, essentially, I hate to use the word COVID, but during COVID is when a lot of people rediscovered who they were because of that isolation. And I'm not saying that you should go into isolation, but I think we're in a time now where it's very crucial to find your center, because we're about to be faced with things, aside from the dating crisis, that is going to force us into isolation, whether we like it or not. So I feel like if you can find your center, find your well-being within you, that you will endure through all of this. Now, again, I'm a believer in Christ, so I would suggest heavily to find Christ in your life. And I mean, I do videos on the reason why I believe in Christ. And it's very unconventional. I can promise you that. I'm not your conventional Christian. I think of things in systems. I think of things in certain aspects of logic. And I know that sounds crazy if you're a non-believer to hear me say that I believe in Christ from a logical standpoint. But I can explain all of that. But, you know, like I said, going back to the dating crisis, I know I could bounce around a lot. That's just how my brain works. I bounce around a lot. um, it's a real thing. And the dating apps are the worst place that you should be getting onto, especially if you're a man. I recommend women not to go on there because I'll tell you why, as far as for men and women. For men, one, even if you're a good looking guy, you're not going to get that many hits. And if you do, more than likely you'll get ghosted. And when you are on those apps, it's almost like it can affect your, I guess, your confidence a bit. I mean, it's never really done that for me. I stopped going on dating apps a long time ago. But I can understand where, you put yourself out there and you're not really getting the hits that you want, that it does something to your brain. Almost in the same sense of how social media does something to your brain. It's something that happens in the background. It's not something that you consciously think about, but something in the background happens. You can call it the subconscious, to where you feel that loneliness. It's more of a nervous system reaction, where you feel that isolation, that nervous, or not, no, I forgot the word. You almost feel that insecurity. It's a feeling, not like oh, I'm insecure, but it's a feeling that you project. And you do that long enough, that becomes your resting default state. So now you're just spreading this kind of energy everywhere. And you don't want that. On the women's side, there's a sense of validation seeking. And I don't think most women realize this, but when you're on those dating apps and you're getting all these guys hit you up, you feel like that you are absolutely this amazing person and this beautiful specimen. And you might be. I'm not saying women are, all women are beautiful. But like I said, on the flip side of how men experience it, there's also a mechanism or a background process going on as well when it comes to women getting that validation all the time. And it creates this false sense of relationship security. And what I mean by that is that most women think that a lot of guys hit them up because they are genuinely interested in dating them, which is not very true. Like I know guys. I understand how guys operate. Most guys don't want to actually date. Now, if you check all certain boxes, yeah, of course, but the way men operate, we it takes it makes most men will purely want sex, unfortunately. And I hate to just rat out the men out there. But most of them are like that. The ones on the dating apps, most specifically. And then also, I think women think about dating differently than men do these days. And so when you have so many guys on your list, like your selection as far as, or your selectivity is even more specific because you have so many guys on your list. Say, for example, you got you got a guy that is above average looking that you meet in person and a great personality. One, there's so many different factors in that, but one, it's in person. So there's a different energy. You get to see this person in motion. You get to, feel their confidence or lack of confidence. There is a 4D experience you're having with this person. And this is the same for guys meeting a girl in person. And like I said, if he has above average looks, but exudes this confidence, you're more than likely going to be more in tune with him and more welcoming to get to know him and possibly even want to date him. Now, if you took that same guy and you put him on that list on your dating app where he's, one of many hundreds of guys blowing up your DMs, you'll look at his looks, you'll probably look at his bio, and you're going to discount him because there's going to be another guy who looks better, maybe has a nice car, maybe a nice job, or maybe it's not even something superficial like that. It could be just the fact that, this guy is, he's into the same music. You know what I'm saying? Just like weird little details like that. But it's easier to discount because now you're comparing. So when you have somebody who talks to you in person, in real life, there is no comparison unless you're already talking to somebody. But there is no comparison because he's the only guy that's walked up to you. You know what I'm saying? Now, given, I'm sure there's women that, have many guys, or a few guys come up to them. But at the same time, you're getting the 4D experience. And the only reason I say 4D experience rather than 3D experience is because, yes, you see them in 3 dimensions, but the 4th dimension I'm talking about in this context is their energy, their aura, who they are as a person, how they make you feel, how you make them feel. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about the inner workings of the attraction. And you don't get that through a dating app. You could text and do all what send emojis, but it's not the same, man. So that's why I say dating apps in general, whether you're a male or female, is just highly destructive. I think it's probably more destructive than social media. Actually, no, I take that back. I think social media, I think it's all in the same realm. They just serve 2 different purposes and have 2 different ways of damaging people's mindsets. I will say social media is worse, but dating apps are worse in other areas, more specifically when it comes to direct, I guess you could say, direct interaction, because obviously social media is more indirect unless you DM somebody through a DM or DM somebody through social media. But it's more of an indirect thing where you're more so comparing your life to somebody else's, that kind of thing. So it's very different, but you guys get the vibe that I'm talking about. So yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about with this dating situation. Yeah, I really don't know. There's not much you can really do in this situation. But I will say this: it's not going to last forever. It's going to hit a breaking point to where this dating crisis will collapse. Unfortunately, we don't know when that'll happen. I don't know when that'll happen, but it's not coming anytime soon. So I think the best thing is that this video can do for anybody out there is to be aware of yourself. Don't let the outside noise distract you from how you really feel about certain things in this atmosphere. Not all men are misogynists or assholes or bad men. And not all women are misandrists, this, that, and the other. There's some good people out there. And that's the unfortunate thing when you have good people who are being brainwashed into thinking certain ideologies. And it's the one thing that's keeping them from being together. I mean, if you think about it, think about all the times you walked by the opposite sex that you were attracted to, but you just didn't because of the ideologies that have been embedded in your mind. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my takeaway from that. Just be aware, and your person's is going to be out there. Not going to be out there. They are out there. And you just got to use your own discernment when it comes to it. And like I said, I think it's important to ask certain questions about how people feel about it, the dating crisis. If they have nothing to say about it, if they're just kind of, woo-woo and unaware and ignorant about the situation, then they're probably not the best person to talk about dating with. Yeah, I think it's really important to ask people these days, what do you think about the dating situation of the world? Or, excuse me, of the West, of America. I know it sounds very like interviewish, and almost like a 2020, kind of question. But I think it's an important question that gets people thinking about the situation and being aware of the situation. And when you got two people aware who want to bypass that noise, then I think that's a big first step. I think even before family values, if I could be completely honest. I mean, family values are highly important, or not even just family values, but just values in general, moral values, so to speak. Because people can have the same moral values, but totally different mindsets when it comes to dating. So keep that in mind. So I think that's all I can say about this topic. I hope I hope I said anything worth, being thought about. But anyways, I just thought I'd mention that and talk about it. I've just thought about doing this video for a long time now. Not just this video, but many other videos. And I'm going to post this up. Hopefully you guys resonate with it. And if y'all do, I'll keep posting. If not, it is what it is. I just felt like I needed to get it out my system. But anyways, my name is Jazz. Thank you guys for reaching the channel. And I guess I'll be cutting off this right now. All right, later.